Hey guys, it's Mr. Jackson. So I'm going to take you through the first few steps of how to open your case, set things up, and then play your first few notes. So the most important thing about taking your instrument out of the case is that it's flat on the ground. If you look at this case, many cases are like this. See how the top has a little arch to it and the bottom is perfectly flat? That's how you can tell the top from the bottom. Another way is if your case has latches, whether it's one on either side or one in the middle or three, each latch should flip up, all right, like that. If you go to take your instrument and you see that your latch is flipped down, stop, flip it upside down, because if you do that and you try to open it, the instrument could easily fall out. And the last thing to tell if your instrument is right side up or not is this handle is always attached to the bottom of the case. It'll open up and the handle stays with it. It won't travel with the top part. So assure that your case is right side up and on the floor. Then you're going to unlatch your case. If your case has zippers, if your case has Velcro or whatever, you're going to undo everything and just open it up. Let me make sure you guys can see that. Just open it up. This is where you get to go, ooh, ah, it's so beautiful. All right, so just like I've said in class, this instrument is very delicate. It's made out of wood. There's no screws or bolts or anything holding it together. It's glue and wood. So be very careful. With your left hand, you want to take and put it around the neck of the instrument, and don't be shy. You can hold it nice and tight so you know you're not going to drop it. Your right hand is going to take it underneath the lower bout, and you're just going to put it in your lap, still holding tight with your left hand. Now, I want you to close your case. You can latch it once or twice if you want to. Just set it aside. We're not using the case right now, okay? Now, if you have your shoulder rest, which hopefully you do, and if you don't, you need to be getting it as soon as possible. Shoulder rests come in a variety of sizes and shapes, but the main thing is they almost all have a little curve. You see how it has a little curve? It's not straight up and down. That's on purpose. So whenever you go to put your shoulder rest on, I'll show you what I'm seeing. You want to hold the instrument with the scroll pointing to the left and the strings away from you, just like this, and still got that death grip, that caveman, cavewoman grip. And I want you to make sure that on your shoulder rest, the feet have been pulled open like that. It should be poking up like that. And that if you look carefully, you see how its little claw, it's like that. You want to make sure those claws are facing inward and not outward. It's not going to grip anything over on the outside. So take that little claw and hang it just over the ribs. Now you see it fits really nicely over that edge there. That's how you know it's secure. So fit that one first, and then take the other one, still holding nice and tight with your left hand, and bring it around to the side and slide it until it also grips that right there. All right? Now, if you have done it correctly, you put the scroll pointed down, you have a smiley face. If the shoulder rest is frowny face, go ahead and take it off and flip it. So you want this one on that side and vice versa. Okay? So the main thing about that shoulder rest is that it is shaped in this way because this is how it'll fit your shoulder. If you have it the opposite way, it's going to poke against your shoulder. It's going to be very uncomfortable. All right, so now you've got your instrument, your shoulder rest on properly. We're going to talk about the playing position. I'm going to teach you playing position as I stand. But of course, as you sit, it's exactly the same. But we have all, like we said many times, when you sit down, your upper body is still standing. So I'm going to start in what we call rest position. So if you need me to stand like this, so rest position is with the scroll pointed to the left. Your left hand is on the shoulder that's closest to the ground, not on top, but underneath, so you can hold it nice and tight. Now with your arm, you're going to put it underneath your ribs and you're just going to kind of tuck it underneath that right there. And you can hold it with this hand, you can hold it with this hand, but you want to just kind of have it there. That way you know for sure you're not going to drop it. All right? So we've talked about our feet before for violins and violas. You want to make sure that your feet start here, and then you take a slight step with your left foot. Balance. You don't want a giant step, just a slight step to where you have a little bit of space between your knees and you're nice and balanced. All right? So if you're looking at me, your scroll is actually pointing that way. That's correct. If your scroll is pointing like mine, as if you're looking in the mirror, you're backwards. So make sure your scroll is pointing that way, mine is pointing this way. Okay? So with your feet, how they're supposed to be, still standing up nice and tall. Oops, my shoulder rest has fallen off. That happens quite a bit. Just readjust. We're going to take you through the 5 steps. Okay? Step 1 is this. You're already here. Feet nice and separated apart, nice and tall in rest position. Now, with you holding the shoulder, again, the shoulder that's closest to the ground, not here. Hold that shoulder. I want you to let go with your right hand, and my shoulder rest fell off again. Take with your right hand, and I want you to raise it up above your head like this, like you're the Statue of Liberty. Just like that, okay? Now, you should have a really good grip on it so you know you're not going to drop it, okay? If you're worried about it, you can take your other hand and hold it like that. Now, I want you to flip it and make it point towards your shoulder, but it's still above. We're not coming from here. We're coming from above. And now I want you to act like your instrument is an airplane. We're going to come in for a safe landing on your shoulder. All right? Now, yes, the instrument does actually butt up against your neck. It should not be out here. That's cause for a lot of injury to your neck. So I have it all the way up against your neck. And if you have your shoulder rest on, it should feel like it fits your shoulder pretty well right there. Right? Now imagine a line going straight down your head, your nose, your lips, your chin. Down here, your instrument should be on this side and not on this side. Okay? And again, I am not a mirror, so your instrument should be pointing this direction if you're looking at me. All right? So, now, mine is pointing this way, yours is pointing that way. Now, if you have a shoulder rest, it should fit between your shoulder and your jaw, and you're just going to point your nose towards the scroll like that. Not bent this way or that way. It's just like you're turning over and you're talking to your buddy who's sitting next to you, okay? Now, if it's fit correctly, you can take your hands away and do what I call the magic trick, all right? So remember, you are not gripping and pushing down with your neck. Although it may feel like you have to do that, if you're afraid you're going to drop it, you can have your hands here in case you're worried about that, but it's not really necessary. This should have as much support as you need, okay? Now, we're going to keep our left hand right here. It's the same place it was when you were in rest position. It's just right there. And I like to have my wrist perfectly straight. Now, if you see from this angle, this is going to come up later. This is one of those things I was talking about. Don't ask me why, but there is a reason. Make sure that this wrist is straight. If you want to feel with your other hand that it's straight and we don't have this, we don't want that. We want that. We also don't want this. Just straight. Now with your right hand, I want you to make an L, and I want you to put your thumb on the side of the fingerboard right here. Now I don't want you to tuck it under because you very likely could pop the fingerboard off. It's only glued on there. And we also don't want it in the corner either because that's going to get this tone as opposed to really thin and twangy versus nice and round, okay? So you got that L, thumb on the side of the fingerboard, about an inch away from the corner right there. And notice, the only things that are outside of my fist is my pointer finger and my thumb. These fingers are tucked in, not gripped, not tight, just in this shape. Why? Because later on you're going to be holding your bow with those fingers, and you're going to need to get used to that hand shape. So, we're going to practice all of your open strings. Now, I want everybody to take your first finger, keep your thumb there. It's always there. It's anchored. It doesn't move. I want you to take your pointer finger and I want you to roll your shoulder over until your first finger touches the string that's farthest away from your thumb. Okay? If you play viola, this is your C string. It'll sound like this without the twang, if it's in tune. If you play violin, this is your G string. This is G. It'll sound like this. Okay? If you move one string closer to this one, violas, this is G. Violins, this is D. This is that note D on the staff that we've been practicing so much. So G, violas, it sounds like this. For violins, your D sounds like this. Now if we travel one farther away, this for violas is your D string, the D that we've been learning on the staff. For violins, this is your A. We're almost to our pointer, our thumb, but not quite there. So if you play viola, it sounds like this. This is D. If you play violin, that's your A string, it sounds like this. All right? Now all the way right next to your thumb, again, make sure it's not underneath. It should be right next to it. If you play viola, the last string you have is A. If you play violin, your last string is E. So violas, you can pull with that first finger and let it go. That's A. That's what A sounds like. If you play violin, it'll sound different, but this is kind of what it sounds like for E. Oops, sorry. That's kind of what your E string will sound like, okay? So now let's go back to rest position, and we're going to practice going through all those steps one more time. So instrument is tucked underneath your right arm. If you want to look as if I'm kind of looking and standing in front of you, underneath your right arm, right here. Your left hand is on the lower shoulder, the shoulder that's closest to the ground, just like that. Okay? So take your feet, take that small step with your left foot. Then, with your left hand holding nice and strong, nice and carefully, raise it up in the air. No wimpies, no weenies down here. Raise it all the way up. Okay? If you're worried about dropping it, you can use your other hand. Then, again, with you holding the instrument with your left hand, I want you to flip it to where the end button is pointing towards your neck. And we're going to act like it's a little airplane. We're going to bring it down, bring it in for a safe landing right on that shoulder. Double check that the shoulder rest fits nice and snug on your shoulder, that the end button or whatever part of the instrument is here, it's actually making contact with your neck. We don't want it out here. And snuggle up if you have a shoulder rest. You can do the magic trick, okay? So again, with your left hand on that shoulder, straight wrist. We always want this straight wrist, not this, not that, just straight, okay? Now with your right hand, I want you to make an L, put your thumb down, and put it on the side of that fingerboard right there. Right there. Okay? I don't expect you to get out a ruler and figure out what 1 inch is. Some of you will have a little sticker there. That's what that sticker is for, showing you put your thumb here, not on the corner, not underneath, and also not out here. You need to have your thumb on the black part of the fingerboard. All right? If you're a viola player, let's talk about your strings first. If you're violin, hang tight for a second. So violas, your first note is C, the lowest note C. Pluck it with me. 1, 2, ready, go. Now, put your finger on the next string over. This is G, making sure your scroll is straight out. Put your first finger on that G, pull it and let it go. 1, 2, ready, G. Go 1 string over, and you might roll your shoulder down a little bit to get to the D string. 1, 2, ready, D. And then on string over, the last one we have left. This is A. 1, 2, ready, go. right, so C, G, D, A. Just like that. Make sure that wrist is straight. Violins. Same exact position, same exact placement of your hands, thumb on the edge of the finger, excuse me, on the side of the fingerboard. Your lowest string is G. Ready, go. One string over, D. Ready, go. One string over, A. Make sure your thumb stays there. Don't pull your thumb off. Like that. Ready? 1, 2, pluck the A string, go. And then the last string that's left, the one that's really thin, E. 1, 2, ready, go. Good, and double check that your scroll is still straight out. You haven't brought your instrument around to the front of you. Keep it over to the side. That's very, very important. All right, now go back to the rest position. Okay, now, last thing we're going to talk about. If you want to play more, pause the video and come back to this point a little bit later, but I'm going to show you how to put the instrument back in the case. So as always, hold on to the neck very firmly so you know you're not going to drop it. The last thing we want is to give you your instrument and the first night something bad happens to it and you won't get to play for a long time until it gets repaired. Just like before, holding the instrument really firmly, making sure that the instrument is flat on the floor, unlatch or unzip, keep it open. And you're doing all this with one hand. You never set the instrument in your lap and do that because I've seen too many times instrument fall and something breaks. So one hand is holding the instrument, the other hand is doing this. Super important. The shoulder rest has to come off and you slide the feet away from the instrument like that. If you pull like that, I've seen this part of the instrument just come unglued and come completely off. So take that and just slide it until it pops off. Okay? Set that aside. Carefully with two hands, place it where it's supposed to go. It's got a nice shape of a violin in it. Now, if you have a case, some of these cases will fit a shoulder rest in next to the neck and it'll just kind of fit. If that's the case, great. If not, you can just leave this, keep this in your backpack or keep this where you have your violin elsewhere or viola. Okay? Now, of course, close the case and do not forget to latch it. If you close the case, you need to immediately latch it because if you say, I'll close the case, okay, I'll latch it in a second. Let me do something over here. You might get distracted, forget to latch it, pick it up, and then you know what happens. It falls, it breaks, and again, we have an expensive repair that will take several days. All right? So, re-watch this video as many times as you like. Explore the different strings and make sure the most important thing right now is that you are in the right position that I've shown you because that will make everything from this point out much easier. See you guys later. See ya.